Otsukimi here. Who else would it be? This is Observations with Otsu. I'm glad you can join me today. Today is Monday, February 26th. For those of you keeping track of the time, as you guys know, this is my weekly update where I go over Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana on the weekly time frames. Lately, I've been also adding ETH BTC because ETH has been a concern for a lot of people as far as its momentum. Based off of the charts that I see right here, I strongly disagree because Bitcoin and Solana seem to be having the upper hand. This may change in the future. We will look all into this. In addition to that, I think we're going to cover a few more alts here. A lot of alts have been pumping today, and a lot of these that have been pumping today have been discussed in Nowhere Premium. I will mention that service as well. That's a service of mine that's very cheap, and for what pretty much everyone has told me, it has been worth the money. So we will get started to that. The theme of this video is, are you bullish enough? And I think that's well, first of all, that's an open-ended question, and I did that on purpose. Second of all, most of that is rhetorical, because if you've been following me, I've done one weekly video roughly every week for the past year to 14 months. And so with that, I've been pretty bullish for quite a long time. I've been bullish really for the past year and a half. But I've been even more bullish for the past 6 months, and so you guys know that this is not a surprise to me. You guys know I basically beat into submission the fact that I got in at 17,000. I got Solana at 19. I got in very early in a lot of other things. And even me, I feel like I'm exposed pretty heavily as far as asset exposure is, but sometimes even I don't feel like it's enough, and I think that's the key. It's not about having the exposure or not, because some of you guys have no exposure, and I do think you should really question that. Some of us have 90%, 95% exposure. Some people think that that's still not enough, but I think the common denominator is that everybody feels like they're underexposed, even though they might be properly exposed. And so that is basically the theme, is that this is freaking bullish, right? And so I think most people are underplaying how bullish that we can get even still. But I'll reserve that for the theme of this video. So usually how this goes is, this is the introduction as of right now. I will get into my services that I offer, because I don't sponsor. I don't take sponsorships. And then we'll go to the theme, and then we'll go into the charts. And so you can expect, usually we run about an hour. That's pretty typical. I've tried to shorten it, but it just doesn't suit my style. And so I will give you the chapters and everything to go through with all of that as your in your discretion. And also, you can like and subscribe if you like my videos. I really appreciate that. I'm trying to get to 1,000. I'm only at like 250, 260, so I'm not going to get there very soon. But even just a like or a retweet would really help tremendously. Even if you don't partake, or even whatever. If you like the video, that helps me tremendously. You have no idea. So anyway, that's the introduction. Let's get started. So first things first, I want to talk to you about Nowhere HQ Premium, also called Nowhere Premium, and all my list of products and services. If you don't want to hear this, you can just fast forward to the theme section. That's completely fine with me. But this is a way to benefit me, or way to support me, I should say, in the best way possible, because I don't do sponsors, as I've said before. I make a minimum of 11 videos a week, in addition to premium charts, looking at small caps, things like that. And so Nowhere Premium is probably the easiest way to do that. It's the lowest cost of that. It's only $20 a month right now. I do plan to increase that in March as I get more features rolling out with that. We have a trading portfolio that's done tremendously well. Of those, we had a position in Alice, which did 21% yesterday and has done about 72% since the position inception. Other ones like comp, we have a big position on comp as well. We just long Solana over the weekend, and it's pumped up about 6% today. So there's a lot of things that are going on with that, and so the portfolio actually is an active portfolio that we use. I show my risk. I calculate everything with that. We started at about $11,000, and we are up to about $20,000 with that. and so it's doing pretty solid with that. And that's been up for about 40 days now. So it's about 40 days. We've almost doubled our portfolio. We have premium charts and small caps as well, and that's one thing. And the small caps even go into even protocols that don't have tokens. So Eigenlayer, for example, we helped set up an Eigenlayer node. I set up a node myself. I created a guide to help others set that up, and that's been reciprocal. We've had followers going back and forth and talking about this, and so it feels like an actual group. It's not about just me just talking. And that's the thing. A lot of these groups are all fine and dandy, but some of these is one-way communication, and I don't do that. That we communicate together. Okay, I treat you the same as equal as I do. I don't treat myself better or worse than anybody else. We are in this, we're equal. And I'm just sharing a platform to be able to do that, but also sharing my charts and insights as well. And then, of course, the daily video updates. Like I said, I do 11 videos minimum per week. Sometimes I do 13 or more, depending on how that goes. And so that's and some of those are premium only videos where you only get access if you're a part of premium, and those are usually where I share the position. So right now, yesterday I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I covered 10 coins yesterday, not even 24 hours ago, and a lot of those are doing pretty good. And when one of them was Solana, and that was the long position that we looked at, and it's up. Like I said, it's up 6%. So, and some other ones that I can't really tell you, but almost every single one of these are doing good. I think all of them are doing good. I mean, the market's pretty good right now, and so some of that is expected, but also some of that is out of the ordinary. And if you feel like you are being left behind, or you think that you're not as exposed, or even if you just don't have the time to look at the charts. And so that's the thing. I spend 3 hours a day looking at charts every day. And so I'm able to share with you what I find very interesting. And I have a pretty good record of doing that. And I'm not trying to brag about that. That's not where I'm going. What I am going with is I'm able to scan the markets effectively. And, if I do let's say I do those 3 hours every day. So that's, if I only do it 5 days a week, that's 15 hours of work I do. And so you get a 10-minute report every day of me doing that. And so instead of you doing 3 hours of work yourself, you only have to watch a video for 10 minutes. And so I think that that's a bargain, honestly. And so most people um, like they're called mini market premium updates. And so my mini market updates alone are worth the price of admission for this. I've been told that. So it's going pretty good. The trading portfolio is also doing really well. So that, again, if you want to get started, there is a 7-day free trial as well. I'm not trying to plug per se, but that's the best way that you can support me directly, because I'm scanning the charts anyway for my own benefit, and then you get access to all of my discoveries, I guess you can say. In addition to that, I also have the Apex Classic. I'm not going to go through all this, by the way. So Apex Classic, this is a script. This is a one-time payment script. You can also do monthly payments for up to 4 months. This gives you lifetime access. I think I might do month-to-month access for 12 months. I think I'll try to open that up for you guys. I do live continual back testing, so I've done 6 videos of back testing for about an hour and a half each. And so that's been going well. I've been working on getting the latest back test coming up. And so it also gives you extra Discord benefits. We can talk about the Apex scripts in the Discord channel. And then also, I am launching the Apex bot service. And so that will allow you to talk. We'll have a private Discord channel to talk about the Apex script as well when the bots get live. So this is very good. The averages, I have a spreadsheet of how the averages go. It's very good. And so the pricing on this varies. The pricing on this is dependent on my back tests. So what I do is I charge 1 R of the price is 1 R of the average trade. So if the average trade, based off of, so I define it in the videos, right? So, but if the average trade makes $500, I charge $500. If it's 1,000, I charge 1,000. So it varies. So right now it's about $700, and because the average trade based off of one Bitcoin should gain you about $700 per trade on average. Now that's an average. That's not guaranteed. That's not guaranteed to happen, nor is it guaranteed to happen in the future. As I said, if that does change, then I will charge cheaper for this because it varies. And so that also goes both ways. If this is a good script, I charge more. If it is less effective, I charge less. So it is a dynamic pricing point. And so, in my experience, this has been a very good script that a lot of people have told me about. And so this is the most expensive option. I'll just say that. I don't mean to say it like that, but is a way to support me. This has been in the making for 4 years, based off of my Arun as well. So this is the only place to get an Arun private script, as far as I know. So anyway, that's another way to support me. And so this could go on. And so this is kind of just real quick. This is what I offer in Nowhere Premium. But anyway, that's the theme. That's the products, I guess, for the two main ways that you could support me. I have Aaron Bots coming up as well. Apex Academy is also coming up sometime in March. So we'll look forward to that. And if you're in my Discord, you can look forward to an announcement of that this week. So anyway, so that's kind of my plug. We'll get to the theme of this video. All right, so the theme of this video is, are you bullish enough? So some of this is going to take some background into what has taken place for the past year. We're going to take a look at Bitcoin. We're going to take a look at some other things. But overall, the emphasis is twofold. Or threefold actually. What have you done in the past? What are you going to do in the future? And what are you doing in the present about both of those things? And I want to emphasize that because in some sense, you guys are not bullish enough. I think overall, I've tried to try to present to you a way to be bullish enough, or how to present this as a theme. But honestly, I'm just going to boil it down to this. What have you guys been doing for the past year and a half? Okay. What are you going to do for the next year and a half? Because I think we're about 50% through this cycle, honestly. As far as time, not necessarily as far as price. I think the next 50%, the next half of this, is going to be much more parabolic than the first. So this is not about price. This is about perception, psychology, and time. And so I bring this all up because a lot of you have been deceived over the past 2 years. Honestly, ever since FTX, but really ever since the top of the market, and really even more than that, ever since the COVID started. And so we there's three main areas I want to mention, and the first one is going to be the top that we had and how bullish everybody was, and I think to a certain extent, everybody is bullish at the top. Most people, I don't say everybody, nobody ever is all. It's never always everybody, I should say. There's always that one guy that thinks contrary, right? But most people were bullish here, and that's the wrong mentality to have. And you've heard the saying, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. I don't agree with the whole saying. Like, I understand the mentality of that, and I agree with the mentality of it. I don't agree with the greedy part, basically. You shouldn't have greed, and you shouldn't even be fearful. You should have neither of those things. But the market psychology, you should understand when people are way too overly excited about things, and when people are scared about things. Okay, and the thing is, nobody was scared to 100 long this, and everybody failed, right? And so, not everybody, but you know what I mean. We went here. The second one that I was looking at is the FTX. Everybody's freaking out. Everybody thinks the world's caving in. Everybody thinks we're going down to like 100 Bitcoin. Like I saw like $1,000 Bitcoin targets. And you guys know the story by now, but the problem is it's not about the story. So I don't want you to look at what happened after that. I want you to think about where you were that day. Okay, and some of you are excused. Some of you, if you didn't have money or you lost all your money or whatever, that's a different story. If you can't afford it, whatever, that's different. If you got a family and you need to do something else, that's different. I don't recommend overexposing yourself to trading if you have a family, for example. And there's times where I even can't trade. Not because I don't have the money to trade, but because I have a family and I have other obligations, okay? Like I take my son out to go eat, and then, the market pumps 10%, and I'm like, well, whatever. I can't do anything about it. You need to adapt a strategy to adapt to that. I need to long before then or whatever, right? That's not what I'm talking about here. What I am talking about is those that, were just sitting on your hands or being too fearful. And there's nothing wrong with having a position. There's nothing wrong with being right or wrong as far as coming up with a conclusion. But I want to ask you, why were you so bearish down here? Why were you so bullish up here? When you had a divergence, everything like that. You had a divergence and everything like that here. Okay, is it because of things like macro? Is it because of things like the FOMC meetings? Okay, I remember exactly where I was for this candle. I was sitting in my car. I just got my car detailed, and we had that big FOMC meeting, the fake out, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's the market's gonna crash now," and it didn't. Okay, it didn't. It didn't even make a new low locally here. So, what are you talking about? And I say this to try to benefit you by saying you need to focus on the bigger picture. Okay, nothing has changed with Bitcoin really for the ever since its inception. Okay, things like the Bitcoin halving. Another issue is, a lot of people think the halving is different, and it could be. I don't know if it will or not, but why should I think anything differently? Okay, when you start to think things differently in that sense, as far as patterns, that's where you get yourself in trouble. You're like, oh, this time is different because FTX, blew it out of the water. Well, everybody was saying that during COVID. This time is different because we have the pandemic. This time is different because of insert, whatever. This time was different because of Mount Gox, right, or whatever. See, or it was before then, but you know what I mean. There was always that scenario. This time is different because of XYZ. Okay, but the problem is you're trying to focus on these things, and trust me, those things are real things. Okay, I failed myself during the COVID thing. Okay, like I got out of the market, and granted that was 4 years ago. I was nowhere good as a trader. I feel like I didn't actually really get good at trading until about this level, honestly. But I mean, anyway, that's not the point. The point is you keep increasing to make yourself better. So even now, like even though I started getting good here, I still feel like I'm way better now versus back then. Like you always want to look past at yourself and realize how stupid you were 2 years ago, right? Because that's a sign that you're always improving. But anyway, it's not about failing or not failing because I failed before, and you may or may not have failed during the bear market. But how can you improve on it? That's what I need you to know and to understand and to learn. And one of the biggest things we can look at in hindsight is that we weren't bullish enough. That you may not have been bullish enough. That even me, as bullish as I was, may not have been bullish enough. And it's not about just being unwise in your bullishness. It's about the market perception. So, for example, going back to the FTX and the fallout with that, who were you following at the time? Who was telling you to get out of the markets? I guarantee you, some of these hot influencers right now were telling you those things to get out of these markets. Okay, this is why there's a lot of big followers that have 500,000 followers or more, or influencers that have 500,000 followers or more. I don't follow because they're fake or they're LARPs or they're pieces of garbage and they're not who you think they are. I'm not even talking about people who you think I'm talking about. These guys are very reputable people in this space that just don't know what they're doing, that understand, but they understand market psychology better than you. And what I say is, they know to play on your heartstrings. They know that you are bearish at 16,000 and they are going to talk about how bearish it is. And now that you're bullish at 53,000, they're going to talk about how bullish things are, and you're going to keep liking that post, liking that post, liking that post. Okay? But at the end of the day, that's not going to put money in your bank. Okay? That's not going to put money in your portfolio. It's not going to help you get a house or whatever you need to do. And so the issue is, are you really bullish enough? And so now that takes place to current day, because now we are at 53,000. We're up almost 300% from the lows. Okay, ETH is at 3,100. Sol is back again above 100. It went down a couple of percent since I started this video today, but it's still going pretty good. Things are green. Things are looking good. So why are you bullish now? Why are you bullish now above 50,000 when you were too freaking scared to buy under 20? And again, I don't say that as a bad thing. I never mean anything to insult somebody. I never do, believe it or not. But sometimes I come off very, very harsh when trying to tell the truth. And so I get misinterpreted. But the point is, what has changed in your perception? Because now, even if we go to 200, 300,000 Bitcoin, which would be great, you still would have only gained like a 4x from here instead of maybe like a 12x from the bottom or 10 or whatever. So, yes, you cannot, the bad news is you cannot do anything about that. That's hindsight, right? But what I want you to know is how can you look at that now? How can you improve on that now? And so I want to reference all of this bullishness as a way to say you should not necessarily be thinking anything different. You should think differently to try to gain an edge. I completely agree with that. But you shouldn't think differently as well. This time the market's not going to go down, or it's not going to go up again. That's the same. We thought about that in 2018. We really thought crypto was dead. Okay, and that was before USDC came around. Okay, so or it just started or something like that. So it's par for the course. Again, that goes back to market psychology. And now we are past the hope stage. And I mentioned roughly around November, I have a video called A New Hope where we entered that hope stage. Okay, and that was basically right here. A recovery is possible. Now we have recovered. Now we are facing that optimism phase. We are in limbo between the end of the hope phase and the beginning of the optimism phase. And so this is something I just brought up in Google. So the note on this isn't mine. I'm sorry if it's a little grainy, but this is just what I'm sharing with you. This is kind of the hope stage. So this was very reminiscent. We had the capitulation here, which was very reminiscent of what we had right here as well. And so that was good. And so now we're kind of, I mean, I doubt that we're going to go back down again. That seems very unlikely to me. We had the disbelief stage, which was this. This was your disbelief stage because and the thing is, I've lived through this and I tried to actively look at all the perceptions of the market. And so this was a very disbelief stage because we thought we were going back down. People thought this was a deviation, including me. I was still exposed. I fortunately had a little bit of favoritism for me because I went on vacation during this time and I was not able to trade. And so by the time I got back, the market actually when the time I got back, this candle happened. I'm like, all right, I'm going to stick around. I think the 200 EMA also helped that as well. But then now, we've kind of went up. So now this is the hope stage. So you had this consolidation here, and again, this isn't exact. The Wall Street cheat sheet is not meant to be an exact replica of the candles. It's meant to be a replica of perception. And so the perception middle of last year was that this is a suckers rally, that this is, and before that was depression. So it's like my retirement savings is lost. FTX, it's a simple thing. And so that was it. It wasn't the anger phase, it was depression. Anyway, then we got to the disbelief stage that hey, this is a suckers rally. This basically saying that this is a rally that's good, but this is not something that's going to last. Then we're looking at the hope stage where okay, now this is lasting a little bit longer. If we can just push, maybe this recovery will actually be manageable. And so this was it right here. And so in my opinion, this is the hope stage. And now we're going up above here. Now that being said, you have again, this is not exact, but we have a pretty decent jump between hope and optimism as far as like longevity. So if we get this small push to the upside, then I think this rally will be good, and this actually leads to the expansion. So if you guys are familiar with the premium charts I do, this looks like a trend line expansion. That's one reason I mentioned that, because trend line expansions are very parabolic. They're very, very, very bullish, and you should be paying attention to those, especially as we get closer to a real bull rally. We've already had a bull rally for really the past year and a half, honestly. And those of you that focus on the housing market and all this and all that, like, why? Why are you doing this? It didn't help you at all, did it? So why? Are you content on just saying that you were wrong and you're going to continue to look at things that you were wrong about? Or are you actually going to change this and say, well, what did I did wrong and how can I improve on it? Okay? You're lying to yourself if you just keep blaming it on the housing market for 10 freaking years or 20 freaking years, okay? Because I've seen people do that. I've had teachers do that. I've had teachers blame recessions on presidents that don't even are not even in office anymore and other things like that. Like, stop looking at the news for one particular event or the other. Okay? You need to simplify this for you. Okay? I don't care how intelligent you are or how dumb you are or whatever. The point is you got to look at it from your personal perspective and if you are making money or not. That's it. Okay? I People ask me about the housing market opinion. I have no opinion. Why? It doesn't pertain to me. Unless I am buying a house. And guess what? If I need to buy a house, I don't care what the interest rate is. Okay, I am in the process of trying to buy a house. And I've waited and I've waited and I've waited, and all that does is screw me over. Now, in most of those instances, I was not able to get a house anyway. I actually have a condo in a different country. So it doesn't pertain to me all the time either. But the thing is, you can't rely on that. If you're being honest, most of you, if you're being honest with yourself, you just want the market to go down because you want to have another big short that you're not going to capitalize on anyway. And you're relying on people to lose their homes and their jobs and dying because of it. And shame on you, honestly, if you think that way. I don't know if you do or you don't, but it's a really weird way to make a few bucks. I mean, just being honest. But the market was telling you the opposite anyway. The market was giving us bull divergences. It was giving us overextensions to the downside. It was giving us every reason to think that we were going to continue to go up. Okay. And the problem with looking at macro and things like that is you can always fill in a void. Like, I could say the opposite. I could say, well, this year is an election year, so of course the market's going to go up, and it's going to go down to next year. Well, that may be true, but that's not necessarily because of it. The thing is, you can look at this through trends and everything else like that. And so I'm not here to argue about the macro or things like that. I'm looking at perceptions of the market and how you can always capitalize on something. You should never come to the charts and say, like, all right, I believe things are going to be bearish because of the housing market. How can I short this crap? How can I twist the charts to get my point of view? That is always the wrong way to do it. Always. And you will lose money doing that. The opposite, the way you should be doing it is looking at the markets, looking at the charts and seeing, okay, what's going on here? What can I identify about this chart? What is this chart telling me? And then it might tell you that it's bearish or it might tell you that it's bullish, and then you come to that conclusion. You don't come with a conclusion first and try to fit your narrative. You should never even have a narrative. I strongly disagree with that the fact that you should have bias. A lot of very good traders I know say that you should have a bull bias right now. I disagree very strongly. You should never have a bias. Their counter argument is that you will always have a bias anyway. No, I disagree. You should always come to the markets without a bias. Every time I get up in the morning and I look at the charts, I look at, okay, what is the chart telling me? Is this bullish? Is this bearish? How can I identify that? How can I capitalize on that? I never think about, okay, how can I long this right now? Or how biased can I even, be even more? No, I don't do that. I might wake up and understand, okay, things have been bullish. So, like, because things have been bullish for the past 12 months, and that's really the whole theme of this video, right? So I can wake up and say, all right, things have been bullish, but that doesn't mean that's going to continue. So a lot of people also look at the markets and say, all right, this chart's bullish. Well, why? Is this chart bullish because it has gone up, or is it bullish because it will continue to go up? Those are two different things, and I have a whole video on that because a lot of people will tell you this is bullish because it has gone up, and that is the wrong mentality to have. Yes, I can identify that. But you shouldn't be talking about it like that. You should be saying, hey, this has been bullish for a year, and not say this is bullish. Even though this could be bullish, you need to identify why it is. So in this particular case, we're getting expansion above the mid. I'll get into that in the chart section of this video. But overall, this is a bullish chart, but also has been bullish. And so you have to identify that as well. So anyway, what I want to say with regards to this chart is that we're entering the optimism phase. In my opinion, I don't think that we're to the optimism phase. I think we're still in the latter end of the hope phase. And so this might get a slow grind up. So we'll see how this goes. I do think we could continue to rally here. We might get a drop down, but we'll see. Or we might. Anyway, I'll talk about that in the Bitcoin section. But what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to prime yourself for the bull market always, even in the bear market. And part of that is going to be you having to ignore or even face challenging parts of the market cycle. Now, the good news is you don't have to think about that until the next bear market. But let's go on to, we talked about the past, we talked about what you can do now. Let's talk about the future. Like, what is the future going to look like? Is it going to be bullish? And the answer is probably yes. Historically, for every cycle, we have gone very parabolic in these runs. So much so that you almost can't believe they go as high as they go. And you need to prepare for that. You need to understand that things are going to run up farther than you think that they will. You're going to have to understand that if you may have to increase your risk to get more reward, and that could cause you problems. So you need to be prepared for that. You don't want to risk yourself too much, but for me personally, this is the time to increase my risk strategically, not haphazardly. I want to mention that. So, but as far as looking into the future, you need to identify that. You need to look at high time frame weakness as a time to get out and other things like that. So this is looking pretty solid overall. That's kind of what I just wanted to mention with the theme. And so again, my main focus is how bullish are you, and what's the best way that you can get bullish as strategically as possible, and understanding your risk management and everything like that. So anyway, that was the theme. Let's get to the charts. All right, so let's get into the charts. So Bitcoin, as you know, is up about 5% today. So that's looking pretty good. The markets are looking really, really good in general. So let's kind of analyze this from a weekly perspective. I have some chicken scratch on here. And so because of that, it is relevant, but I'm going to go to a different chart first. I'm going to go to the Binance chart. Most of this is going to stay the same as far as this goes. But as far as the weekly analysis, last week we actually had a bearish candle. So keep in mind that this current bull candle is only for the past 24 hours. So this may not necessarily go up all the way. And I want to emphasize that. Like, we should not get a bias or basis or any sort of expectation on how the week will go because of the first day. In most cases, it does not happen one way or the other. Also, you also have these wicks. And so, as I've mentioned before, almost every candle has a wick to the upside and to the downside, which means the current price within the first, for the price is going to usually land somewhere in the middle. Very rarely do you have a candle, so like even something like this that you had a very little upside, so that was good. And then it usually leads to a downside candle. Most of these have strong wicks to both sides, right? And so I want that to keep in mind overall. And so last week was a bearish candle, but despite that, the average stayed strong because we had a new high. So that was pretty good. That was a decent sign that we might get a rally. And so we will look later on the daily perspective why that's the case. In addition to that, the RSI is looking pretty good. We still have this divergence. This is still an active divergence, I believe. And so it's one thing to watch out for. And I'm going to mark this just to make sure. And yes, this is still active. And so we'll see how that goes. It would take another 2 weeks to deactivate, so to speak. But this is still looking pretty valid. And that could be a concern. And I want you to look at that as a concern. We are above the 80 marker though. So the thing is, I would wait till it goes below the 80 on the weekly to have a concern about that. That's something we did go below it, but now we climbed above it. And so now we need to wait for the rest of the week to look at this. So it's very possible that we still, despite how good the past 24 hours is, we still could have a pretty bad week overall. This could be the top even, depending on how you want to interpret this. Now, I understand that might be contradictory because the theme of this video was, are you bullish enough? But again, that's more of a psychological thing for one. Two, we still need to look at the charts at how they are perceived. That doesn't necessarily mean the top is in. I want to be mindful of that. Okay. And so I'm almost positive that the market, the Bitcoin will be higher at some time this year. I'm pretty sure we'll get 60,000 at some point this year. I don't think I don't have a shred of doubt about that. But the thing is, you don't know how you're going to get there. So, and that's also why I said in the theme of this video, don't be haphazard about this, because we could go down to 40, even 30,000 first, although that's unlikely, before we get to 60, 80, 100. See what I'm saying? So be mindful of that. But again, as far as the weekly perspective, I'm looking at not this current candle first. As far as this goes, looking pretty solid. Now, let's go ahead and go back to the Coinbase chart because I have this market structure right here. So there's a few different things on here. These are just take profits here. But actually, you know what? I'm gonna go back to. I just like the cleaner chart. I'm still using the other chart for a reason. But I'm gonna create a fib block here, and the reason I am, which is what I had on the previous chart, is because previous consolidation areas like this one from 2021 is very important because what this was a testing of supply and demand, back and forth, and that was to help justify the price point. And so we know that from the midpoint that was significant. And so now the reason I didn't mark this one, by the way, is because this was a deviation. This is a little bit different. I don't have time to explain that necessarily, but this was much stronger than this one was in terms of supply and demand. So now this is relevant to current price because we consolidated right before this resistance point, and then we actually consolidated for 2 weeks at the mid. Now again, we still got 6 days left, so this could come back down. If this comes back down below this mid, then we have a problem, possibly. It doesn't mean we have a big problem, but this does mean we have a clear rejection, and we need to be mindful of that. Now, if we close above this mid, that's bullish. Then if the next candle we close below, then that's very bad. So that would be the worst case scenario. I would rather have this reject completely than to keep going forward. But this is still looking pretty good. All that said, all those are hypotheticals, like what ifs. This is looking pretty good as is, and we need to be mindful of that. And um, so overall, the market's looking pretty good. The next structure would be 60,000, and then we can look at that and kind of play that out. And so I don't see, there's really no reason to think that we couldn't just go straight to 60. There's not really any resistance because you have this retest zone right here as part of the deviation. That would be your next bet, would be 60,600. And I can't believe I'm even saying that. I can't believe that's coming out of my mouth that I'm looking at 60,000 as a retest point, right? And so that's something very interesting to me. So anyway, that's kind of what I see on the weekly. Looking good. Aaron's looking good. I still am concerned about this divergence. So keep this in mind overall. I still am under the impression that I think Bitcoin might cool off retrospectively compared to the alts, and that alts will run higher than Bitcoin over the next 2 months. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have markets like today. But for somebody like me that's in Solana, is having a better day. A lot of alts like Near are having a better day. Even audio. That was a coin that we did in premium, so I'll talk about that tonight in premium. Um, you know, Alice is still up. Nos, I talked about that on Twitter. So a lot of these are doing way better than Bitcoin, and that's we're kind of getting what I want. And so what I say when I say things like, so when somebody says like ETH BTC, like the ETH BTC chart, if ETH is going to be more important than Bitcoin, that doesn't mean Bitcoin's going to go down in price. They both could go up. ETH is just going to go more than Bitcoin. So that's what I mean by that. When I'm looking at alts BTC, I think alts BTC is going to be stronger than Bitcoin USD. But that doesn't mean Bitcoin can't go up. In the ideal scenario, both of them will go up, but the alts will go up more, and that's kind of what we're seeing. And so this is kind of around the realm of my expectation of what I was looking at the past 2 weeks. So let's go to the other Bitcoin chart on the Coinbase to look at the daily. And so this is something that I mentioned here. Actually, that was I'm gonna get rid of this. Yeah, I'll just get rid of that completely. So, um, going here, actually, I want to cover the 1 day in particular, or the 4 hour in particular, but we do have a divergence on here, a little bit concerning, but we'll get into that in a second. Um, what I want to look at is the 4 hour time frame and see this was a Wyckoff reaccumulation thing that I was looking at, and so this seems to have taken off very interestingly enough. Now I don't know if the Sailor acquisition had anything to do with this. I don't. I would like to not. I would like to think it wasn't. But we did have a reaccumulation pattern, and so one thing, even if it was a catalyst, I keep mentioning that like markets will move because they are able to. Okay, so if a news event, even if a news event caused something, let's say let's say we know 1,000% without a doubt a news event caused something to move. Well, that's because the market had the liquidity, or well, the market had the structure to let that move. See what I'm saying? Because like a because let's go back to Sailor, right? So like let's say we know for sure Sailor caused the market to go up today. Well, why didn't he cause the market to go up 2 years ago with the FTX fallout? See what I'm saying? The conditions are currently ripe for something like Sailor, if that was true, to affect the markets in that way to make it true. So it becomes self-fulfilling, and that's why I don't follow the news, because the news will always be secondary to market moves based off of market psychology. You still need market participants. And so that's why I never focus on news, because even if I know for the most part news could affect the trading, it's only because the market allows it to do so. And if I'm just saying like, oh, because what if I buy Bitcoin because Sailor does, like, well, that's kind of gambling. I mean, the probabilities are so low. And guess what? You're going to have to look at the charts anyway. So why don't you just cut out the middleman and just focus on the charts? So anyway, but the Wyckoff reaccumulation period, that's something that I've been looking at for a few days now. Seems like, excuse me, seems like to have had a good effect. We might come down, so this is a breaker move, so we could come down even as low as like 53,000 and then launch back up, as signifying this, this push up retest. So we could honestly we could we could retest somewhere in the top, you know, this blue zone right here, anywhere between 53,000 to 52,600. I think that's completely possible, and that wouldn't really affect any market structure or anything like that. So that's kind of what I see with that. So market's looking pretty good for Bitcoin. Pretty much all I need to say about that. Let's go ahead and go to Ethereum. All right, let's go to Ethereum now. Ethereum on the weekly, a little bit different of a story. We had a very big bullish candle, and really that's been the case for the past 3 weeks. Big bullish candles, and but then four bullish candles for the past 4 weeks. So we've been on a pretty good tear as of late. So far, that continues to be a case. Only about 2%, which is not much compared to the rest of the market, but still holding steady. Just because it has a little bit less of a productive day does not signify any sort of weakness or lack of strength or anything like that. That's just par for the course. Um, and a lot of you guys would do yourself a big service if you understand that from your day to day. So with that, the A-Rin's pretty solid. This is your max. So the A-Rin's at 100%. You're on the bull side. The bear side is at 0. This is what you need. Um, I believe it should be at 0. That's as low as it can go. Yeah, yeah. So it won't show it on there. Or no, it's at 7% right here. So sorry, it could go down a little bit lower. So anyway, as far as that goes, it's pretty much your maximum potential as far as the A-Rin. So this signifies that we are in a max bull trend versus something, so like Bitcoin's in the same example. Solana is a little bit different, which we'll get into that in a second. So with all of that, we also have, the RSI is doing pretty good, no divergence. It's not even oversold, so this is looking pretty good. So as far as long-term potentiality, Ethereum still has the edge here. Doesn't have the divergence. This is looking very clean, very strong, very momentum based. And we also have this Adam and Eve. We have this whole structure that I talked about for so long. To kind of summarize it with one little block here, I can't emphasize how strong this should be. We should probably never go back below I don't think we'll ever go back below 2,000. I don't think that we will. And so I think this presents a good idea. Is like you could still long this and still be relatively. And if you're doing a long term trade, I still think 3,000 is a pretty good price point in comparison to what we could expect. I think 10 grand is definitely something that we could look forward to. In addition to that, you have your mid-range wedge right here. We broke above this last week. When we break above the mid, you can expect a rally. So my next target right here is about 3584 or 3600, and so I think that that's looking pretty good overall. So very solid. There's not really much else to say. As you know, Ethereum has always kind of been, it has been slow and boring sometimes, but it's always been self-explanatory, and I really appreciate that. And so this has been pretty good. Let's go ahead and go to the daily and kind of see what else we can look at here. So we'll just kind of get rid of this. We do have a slight divergence here. Not really much to be said. So one thing I can see in mind is we had this section right here that we actually broke above, and so you could have relonged this scenario. This is looking pretty good. Other than that, not much else to be said. We do have that divergence, but it's very small, so that could be insignificant. We also have a hidden bull div, so this could usually when we have a bear div with a hidden bull div, that results in a chop scenario. And so let's go ahead and go to the 4 hour, because I did mention in my Discord that we do have a channel here, and so that's more of a no. Where is it at here? I think it was here. Yeah, yeah. So a little bit of a pretty big channel, honestly. See if I can get this sorted out, and so this is going to be a little bit variable because I needed to draw it. So, but this is kind of the scenario I'm looking at. If we can break above here for the zone at 20, 32, 33, then I think we're well on our way. I think we're actually going to be going past 3,500. I think we might have a pit stop there, but I think 4,000 might be a better target. We'll see where that goes as far as rallies go. But this is looking pretty strong. In fact, I'll probably just set an alert there to be concerned about this. But as long as this holds the channel, I'm bullish on this. And so this is where, yes, you have the divergence, you have other options, and you even have a divergence here. But until this channel breaks, you should keep this mentality. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at overall. So other than that, not much else to be said on Ethereum. It's very clean. I appreciate a clean charts. Makes my job a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and go to Solana. All right, let's look at Solana. So on the weekly, previous week, we had a pretty decently bearish candle rejection of the mid as well. That was always a concern of mine. If you've watched some of my previous videos, that I always try to look at the mid as a good sentiment between supply and demand. If we can break above the mid, that's a good sign. We have now rejected the mid on Solana twice. And so on top of that, the current price, despite the fact that it's up 6%, is not above the mid as well. And so there's some of these things too. Again, things are looking very bullish. I'm still expecting things to be bullish, but we also need to be mindful of some of these other things. And so all of that being said, I'm not trying to confuse you by that. I'm trying to say you should look at these as bullish despite these things, or you should look at things bullish despite the bullish, or whatever you decide, right? And so that's the thing. Overall, I'm in the consensus that things are bullish, and things need to confirm to be even more bullish. That's how I interpret those things. And so with the weekly, we also have this Arun bearish wedge. We've been in this for quite some time. You guys also know by the time that we hit the 50 marker, which is roughly around here, we tend to kind of bounce. That has not been the case actually, so far. But this wedge overall is designed to have this entire price point. So this structure is designed to be overly bearish in retrospect to the higher time frame above it. So what I'm saying is we haven't made a new high basically. And so the good news is this wedge has been largely ineffective despite the fact that it should be. Now, what usually happens is this crosses bearish to the upside. We get the white or the black line to go up. Then this turns into a bullish consolidation. This here is the inverse of that. We had a bullish wedge that didn't do too much, and then once it had a bullish cross, then it kind of slid down, and that's one reason we got the drop down. So with the same thing that we can expect here is that we had this drop down, and then we're probably going to not slow bleed, but slow crawl upwards, and then we might expand to 144. And so that may take a week or two or even 4 weeks to play out. So we'll see where that goes. I'm not, although I am expecting 150, I'm not necessarily expecting it super fast. And I have a pretty fat bag of Solana at $19 that I haven't sold a single penny, and so I don't plan to change that anytime soon. We don't have a bear divergence, although it looks like we might. But it's going pretty solid. This is a pretty solid chart overall, and I really like this. The fact that we're consolidating here at the mid is still pretty good. One reason why we might be struggling, that this one interpretation that I have is that this isn't necessarily a mid-time rejection, but that we are actually resisting above this zone instead. And so let me kind of clean this up. And so this is what this looks like. And so we have a double rejection here, not quite a deviation, but just kind of a small rejection. And then this is your alternative. And so that way, again, I'm not trying to change this to fit my bias, of course, because I just told you not to. However, this looks like we could be getting a ascending triangle. So this is something to keep in mind. Consolidations at resistance is bullish. And so this is leading me to believe that we could rally. It might take as long as the end of April, but I think, one, it might be before then, but two, until this fails below this level on the weekly, I have no reason to think I shouldn't be hyper bullish on Solana, even over Ethereum. A lot of people are even now trying to flip to Ethereum. And yes, Ethereum has had a good rally relative to the past month or even 2 months with Solana. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be better or I don't really care about the better or worse. The thing is, how can you make the money? If you can do it with Solana, great. If you can do it with ETH, it's great. More importantly, you got money in your pockets. So let's go ahead and go to the daily. And so this is one where we had a little bit tricky here. We had a head and shoulders pattern right here that I can see. Had a fake out, deviation, impulse. So another thing. Once we get the deviation impulse, it's a sign that things are going to rally. And so that seems to be the case. This is also, so we also have a recovery on the 50 RSI, bullish consolidation here. But we also have a good 4 hour, or no, we don't. I'm sorry. This is, that was the daily I think I was looking at, right? Excuse me. So the daily impulse here, yeah, it was the daily. I'm sorry. So the daily, we had the bounce up above here, and this is usually pretty strong. Once we get the recovery and the bounce, you can't necessarily disregard that. I think actually, I was looking at this. That's what I was looking at, and so we had a bounce right here, and so once we have this trend line to the upside, usually we get this bounce. We got it. It's looking pretty good overall. Still up about almost 6% today. The markets are looking really good. And so honestly, that's pretty much all it is for Solana as well. I think overall with the top three, you can kind of be focused on, just kind of being bullish. And so, as I've said before, the market psychology should change for you. So, I think buying dips are much more probable versus, other times in the market, let's say. So I think we might get more recoveries instead of less. And so the markets have been looking pretty good overall, and I think that will continue to do so for the next year. Now, let's go ahead and take a detour. Let's go look at some other coins, some of them that are doing good, some of them that have been premium. We'll take a look, and we'll do that, and then we'll end the video. All right, so some coins I want to look at. Now, some of these I have covered in premium, but I've already kind of covered them, so I don't mind sharing them now. But I am consciously sharing these as kind of a plug as well, so I want you to know some of the things that we have discussed. And so one of those was near. This was one position that we perceived. I think that wasn't. This was the position that we covered the first time, and so this is already. Actually, we talked about taking profits here yesterday at 42%. If those have not, you'd be at 53%. So this is a really good, 40% trade that we covered. One that we also looked at was comp, and now comp was a 3-day trade, and it went up pretty significantly. We're about 2/3 into this already, so this is looking pretty good. And about 26%. Now you may ask, well, like, Otsu, the market's everything's green, so why should I care? Well, okay, I agree with that. So let's look at your portfolio and see what your performances look like, what other influencers' performances have looked like, things like that. We can take a look at that and try to compare notes, okay? And so I would like to venture to say, like, we'll just compare and see. If mine are better, that's fine. If not, whatever. So the thing is, we can compare the notes and take a look. Also, I'm also coming from this from a way to make this easier for you as well, where you don't have to do the work. I do the work for you. Another one that we talked about was Theta. Theta was something that actually just blew through its target today. So that was a 51% target. 55 if you haven't closed it just yet. So this was pretty good. And so looking pretty strong. And so honestly, these positions are going uh, fairly well. I think another one was audio. Audio was one that we looked at. This just went to target as well. This was one where we entered in right here. All of a sudden, it kind of pumped up. So this is a 32% R trade, or 32% trade, I should say, at 4R. Another one, we looked at NOS. NOS was one I posted on Twitter. That was that for 24R at 271%. That's just an open trade that we've discussed for the past 3 months, and it has been, or 2 months has been going, or no, since February. Yes, it's February 1st, so only a month. So going pretty good. Alice was another one. We actually talked about this last night, and so a lot of the premium members have probably taken profits, perhaps. I don't know if they have or they haven't, but I reported this one last night as being done because we were looking for a target close to the resistance point. This was 68% at its close, and it's now below that. And so those are some ideas that we've looked at before. Um, Doing pretty well. We got some other ones, of course. I think we also mentioned Gala, and Gala was one we talked about that. We closed at 47%, but this was looking pretty solid as well. And I got much more charts in addition to that, but those are just some examples of the market going up and some of the things of what we've been discussing in the market. And like I said, I would love to discuss more, but like I cover like 30, like I'm not even kidding you, like 30 to 40 coins a week probably. So they um we talk about quite a bit. So anyway, that's pretty much the video. And let's go ahead and take a small summary. All right, so quick summary. Bitcoin had the impulse. We looked at this reaccumulation pattern on the 4 hour. It's doing pretty good. It worked out pretty decently. I think we're going to continue to get confirmation. Might get a drop down here the next day or two, but I think this is looking pretty good overall. It should continue. I think we have a good chance to rally to 60,000. Ethereum is one that's looking pretty good with this one. I think I mentioned on the other chart actually for Binance. We have this channel structure. As long as the channel goes in, or as long as the channel stays in, things will be bullish. If we can break above that, things will go parabolic. I'm looking at a $3,500 price point, but I do think we can reach to 4,000 if we maintain this structure. That being said, there are divergences on Bitcoin and Ethereum, so I also would be mindful. Just keep in mind, and also divergences don't mean you shouldn't get into a chart. I look at divergences as a way to get out of positions that I'm already in. If I'm not in a position and I see a divergence, you can still get in. Just know where the invalidation points are. And then going on to Solana. Solana was I think I mentioned this on another one too. Solana is one where we were looking at this from a weekly perspective. But this is going good. We had the bounce up. I'm looking at a target about 120 right here. And then as far as the weekly structure, I think we can break above this, go to 136, and then we should just be fine. In addition to that, we also covered a lot of premium charts, particularly like Near and Gala and Alice going up pretty significantly. Comp is also one of them. And like I said, that's part of what we've talked about in Discord. If you like this video, just subscribe. This is pretty much the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this, and let me know what you think. Please take a look at Nowhere Premium. Take a look at the scripts. Look at the back testing on that. I gave plenty of transparency to prove that these are scripts and services that are productive, so anyway, please check them out if you would love to. Subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you next time.